Everybody has a day now and then when you feel down. Um, for no particular reason, nothing special, just kind of feel down. Yesterday was one of those days for me. Again, nothing special happened. It was a rainy day. That does seem to have an effect on me sometimes. But I just felt down all day. I wasn't sad about anything in particular. I just, no energy. Um, you kind of feel moments of no joy. Nothing's particularly wrong. You just want to feel better. Um, I'm determined to make sure today is not another one of those days. I feel a little bit of grumpiness creeping into my morning, but I've got plenty of time to correct it through the day. And so I'm going to do an experiment. I've always thought, well, anyone who gardens will probably tell you that things about gardening are sort of therapeutic. And I wonder if there's maybe some science behind it. Maybe someday I'll look into it. But today what I want to do is to go out in this kind of sluggish mode and just start working in the garden and see what happens. Everyone knows sunshine is good for your spirit, exercise is good for your spirit, gardening will give you both of those. But today, I've got a huge pile of, list of things that need to be done in the garden. And I'll take you out and show you what those are. And I don't really want to do any of them. When you think of it in like a list, it just seems like a lot of work. But I know that it's all things that I really enjoy doing. So I'm wondering how long I have to be out there in the sunshine and in the dirt before I start to perk up. I'm home alone today, so it's harder to show that emotion. So when I'm by myself, generally, and you probably are too, you don't laugh and giggle about funny things out loud if no one's around. I don't. I also don't get angry outwardly when no one's around either. So it might be a little bit hard for me to tell, how I'm feeling because there's nobody here to share it with. But maybe by the time Craig gets home this afternoon, I will have shaken the crabbies from my blood and be ready for just a nice, happy evening. So what I want to do is take you through my list of things to do. Like I said, right now, I don't really want to do any of them. But if I go down the list of all these things that are normally really enjoyable for me, and I just start picking one or two of them, one at a time, I think that's going to help. So let's get started. See, that needs to be done is right here. This pile of cucumbers I harvested from our few days away. They've actually been sitting on my counter for a couple of days, which is not good. They're not so fresh when they've been sitting there, but I need to find something to do with them. I'm going to probably can them into pickles. I'm not great at that yet. I'm not super efficient at it, so I've been sort of putting it off. But that is actually probably one of the most important things I should be doing today. Probably I should do that right now, but I'm not going to. I don't want to be in the kitchen because, look outside. You can't really see that, but we have a bright, sunshiny day. So I'm going to get out there and enjoy it. I did see our little friend the raccoon out here last night. He's a terrible nuisance. I just let him fly in. He's a terrible nuisance and we all just hate him. But he's so incredibly cute. So, there's a lot to do out here. This lettuce is probably bitter and no good. That's one thing that probably needs to be cleaned up. I have to plant some cilantro. I don't know, it might even be too late, but I wanted fresh cilantro for my salsa. And mine already bolted and is gone. These need to be taken care of today. So these are my zinnias that my second round of zinnias, because the first died. They're not super happy out here in these cells. And these are poppies. I don't know. I'll try to put them in the ground and see what happens. These are nasturtium. I'd really like to get them in the ground today too. They got leggy when I put them inside while we were gone. This is kale. This is blue Scotch curled kale. And I should try to get that in. This is my basil, my poor neglected basil. It needs to be up potted. And then these ground cherries I started, they need to be up potted too. Here's my experimental 2 rows of tomatoes. And give them some attention today. Well, I'll come out and stake these up today. Some of them just need to come out. Others need some care. This still needs to be done. This patch of grass from Molly's pool was coming in nicely, and then the sun fried it while we were away. Aren't these pretty? I think these might be my new favorite. We have a little nest in here. I wonder if we can see in it. Oh yeah, I saw a little face in there. He backed up though. I hope that was on the camera. That's kind of cute. I could have just swore I saw something run through my garden. That is not good. How did it get in there if it did? I don't know. Maybe I imagined it. These strawberries, most of this bed are June bearing strawberries, and I read that you're supposed to mow them after they're done producing, and I obviously can't mow it because it's in a raised bed, so I think I'm going to come out and try to maybe just clip the leaves off. I don't know. So this tower, I almost tripped, needs harvesting. I got lots of these banana peppers, lots of them, and these I probably won't get to today because I still don't know. Look at that. I still don't know what I'm gonna do with them. But they're on my list. My competition tomatoes over here. I should stake or tie those up and perhaps prune them, so maybe they could get some attention today. That'd be a good thing for me to do. But the big job in the garden is over here. This could take me all day. So this is 2 rows of indeterminate tomatoes. Indeterminate tomatoes need to be staked and pruned, and I haven't really pruned these at all, and they're just kind of a jungle in there, and I gotta get to that soon or they're gonna start to get a little sick. And this side too, I don't really know what to do here. I don't know, I think I screwed up on this side. Maybe not. There's a bunch of radishes in here that I'm kind of hoping we'll just be ready to harvest soon, so I can get them out of here and maybe put something else in. And these beans are just going crazy. They run out of trellis. I don't really know what to do with them. And there's no beans yet. It looks like we maybe have a couple of cucumbers to pick. And then this is the other spot that needs attention. Probably my least favorite. I gotta come in and weed this out. A lot of stuff's coming in really pretty, but some of the things in here, because I'm planting stuff I've never planted before, a lot of it didn't come up, but I'm not sure what's a weed and what's not. I'm probably lying. I probably know exactly what's a weed, but I just don't want to do it. But look at my cosmos, aren't they pretty? Lilies look like they could be staked. Look at that. It's smells so good. It's almost like perfume. So I walked across the street to get the mail, and guess what was on my mailbox? 2 Japanese beetles, and they were mating. Japanese beetles devour my garden, which means that's another thing I need to add to my list. I don't know what I'm going to do about them yet, but I gotta at least put up a trap or something because they're here and they gotta go. They can't eat my garden. I can't let it happen. These are my new seeds that I bought because that's the rule. You have to, if you go to the nursery, you have to buy seeds. So I bought these. They gotta go in. I don't know, I'm thinking about just not planting them this year, but if I can get them in today, maybe tomorrow, I could still get something off them, but I'm gonna plant these too. Isn't it gorgeous up here? I'm already feeling a little bit better. I have a lot to do, but it's all stuff I get to do because I'm lucky and and I love to garden and I'm excited. So first things first is I'm gonna lose the shoes because I don't know, there's just something about not wearing your shoes outside in the summer that feels amazing, like you're young again. So shoes are gone. Second thing is this. This is that sucker that I accidentally cut off my super sweet 100 tomato, and I thought I would try to root it in water. I've never done that before. I acknowledge that I left too much on here, but I didn't want to lose these little fruits. So I saw that this is indeed starting to root, but silly me, there's not enough water in here. It's not only going to root where the water is. I want it to root up as high as I can go. So I'm going to take this inside and fill it up with water. Okay, this is the first thing I'm going to work on. This basil was actually, I started it as an experiment. I really wanted to get some holy basil for my garden, but I wanted to make sure that it would grow quickly because I got it in kind of late. And so I was going to try 2 methods. One is just starting the seeds in these trays, and the other to germinate on paper towel in a bag. And I did a video explaining the process, but the experiment was just a massive flop, and so I just never followed up on it. I have a few varieties, and they got, yeah, these don't look good. They got yucky and leggy when I went out of town for a few days and I had to move them inside, so I need to start potting them. So maybe I'll just start with one of these. So this cell is a Thai basil. You can see they're just not a happy plant, so they're leggy. I thought I would prune these, but yeesh, even these bottom leaves are just not very healthy. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get these in a pot, and I can't even prune them at this point, but maybe if I get them in a pot in the sunshine with a little bit more room to grow, maybe they'll start coming in. So let's do that. I have this labeled, but these tags tend to fade in the sun, so I'm just gonna write it again on the back so that I don't lose track of what kind of basil these are. If you have any suggestions on a better method of tagging that's not gonna disappear by the time it's time to harvest, I'll take it. These patio containers are really great in concept, but I'm finding that because they're hollow underneath, or the rail is taking up half the interior room here, they don't get a lot of room to spread out. So the plants that are doing better in here are the plants, I guess, that don't mind to be being crowded. Basil does appreciate being nice and tight in a planter, and so I'm just gonna go ahead and plant a few of them in here. This is the Italian large leaf basil, and some of these are doing well enough that I could prune them off. So what I'm gonna do is, on these ones that have a couple of sets of leaves here, I'm just gonna pinch off the growing tip. And the reason I do that is because if I pinch this off on the top here, it will start to sprout new growth along the stem, and it'll start to bush out a little bit more. So these two bigger ones that have a few sets of leaves, I'm just going to pinch those tops off. So I did two. And I'll let these two littler ones grow a little bit more before I prune those off. I'm going to try to plant these a little bit deeper. Tomatoes you can plant up the stem and it'll grow roots. I haven't heard that you can do the same thing with basil. In fact, I think I read that you can't, but I'm looking at this basil, and I don't know if you can see it, but I can see that there's little roots look just like what the tomato looks like. So I'm going to plant this one, maybe an inch deeper and see what happens. This is the spicy globe. It didn't develop very good roots in here. But there are plenty of little sets of leaves here. So I'm going to go ahead and pinch off the tops of these too. And if you can prune these, do, because it really helps them a lot. These I planted 3 to this little pot. Basil likes to be planted pretty thick. They like to be a little bit crowded. This is lime basil, which I've grown before. This is dark opal. I have not grown it, and I don't know what to do with it, but it looks gorgeous, so I'm happy with it. And then this is lemon basil, which I also have not grown before, but oh my gosh, does this smell good. So I'm going to prune each of these off if I can, if I've got enough sets of leaves here. I don't really know if this one does, but I'm going to try it anyways because otherwise it might not survive. Yeah, that tastes like lime. So hopefully these will bush out a little bit. This dark opal has a mild but hearty flavor. I'm going to take this lemon way back. It's big enough and hearty enough that I think it can stand it. It tastes like a lemon Starburst, which I don't like. I don't like the lemon Starburst, but this is really good. This pot will be all sweet Genovese, which will hopefully be my big batch of basil that I can use for pesto. I missed out on making pesto last year because we went out of town for a couple of days in the fall, and when I came back, the basil just dropped every single leaf that it had. So that was really sad and disappointing, but this year I'm determined to make it work. So I'm just going to transplant this basil, and I will make pesto this year. So here's the sweet Genovese that's ready to go. I have some more, it's labeled sweet basil, but I think it's the same, sweet Genovese. And I'll pot this up, and then I'm a little bit disappointed because the whole reason I bought that packet, like the variety pack of the different kinds of basil, is because I wanted this holy basil. And so I planted extra, so I planted 6 seeds in each of these cells to get about as much of this holy basil as I did this sweet Genovese, but it didn't do very well. This middle cell here has just one sprout. Looks like there was a, oops, sorry. There's just one sprout here. Looks like there was a plant growing in here that died. So I don't know if this just variety is a little bit finicky, but I hope it perks up and comes back, because this is what I really wanted to try. So, 2 things. Basil, so here's what I have. Basil likes to be planted densely, and so they like to be crowded, so there's really 2 choices. You can either put them in a small pot and let them grow from there, or you can pack them in really densely into a larger pot. I don't want to use a smaller pot because the smaller the pot, the quicker it dries out, and I'm just not good enough at watering to get out here. In fact, my some of my pots are already drying out on the deck, even though it rained most of the day yesterday. So I want to stick with the bigger pots if I can. So I didn't want to combine them, but I think what I'll do is I'll use this kind of medium-sized planter, and I'll put the sweet basil on one side and the holy basil on the other, and hope that they both grow really well. Okay, I've got my basil all potted up. I've got 3 planters sitting down here, and then I have a few varieties here in this patio ledge planter. So I'm happy with that. I'm just going to give it a nice gentle watering. They're probably all a little in shock from the transplanting, but they do need some water. So I'm going to give them a little water, and that's done. Okay, before I move on to the next thing, I'm just going to do a quick check-in on my grumpiness scale. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling much better already. Just being outside really helps. I'm about a 1 or a 2 on the crabby scale. I do really well when I'm busy. That makes me sound like I'm crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't make me sound like I'm a head case, but I know very well that everybody has these days. Anyway, being in the dirt is helping, and I feel pretty good. So, I'm not crazy. So, task number 1 is complete, and I've checked it off my list, and I'm ready to move on to something else. Feeling pretty good. The next thing I want to work on is just transplanting this ground cherry. I only want this ground cherry because it's one of my tomato hater rehabilitation ideas. If I can learn to like ground cherries, they have a little bit of a tomato flavor, and so I just want to have it as a stepping stone into learning to love tomatoes. And so I planted them from seed a few weeks ago. It was pretty late in the season to plant, but they're growing pretty fast. And if I remember right, these ground cherries do grow insanely fast, and they're insanely prolific. And so I'm totally fine with just planting them now, and I do think that I'll get something from them. But here's the thing: I have really good. There's a lot of sprouts in here, but the healthy ones, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 good ground cherry seedlings, and I really only need 1. So this is my predicament that I run into all the time, is that I've got all of these seedlings, and I don't want to get rid of them. I don't need them, but I don't want to just throw them out. And I don't know if somebody else wants them, but if they do, they're going to want a nice healthy plant. So what do? You know, do I keep, first of all, do I plant 1 into the pot? I don't think so. I think I planted just like a tomato, just 1. Did I say 1? I guess the question is, do I plant more than 1 in the pot? No, I think they only will probably have room for 1. They get pretty big. So what I could do is just take 1 or 2 and put them in a big pot and let them go. And maybe I can just up pot a few more and let them get nice and big and see if anybody wants them. I don't know. I always make more work for myself. If I were smart, I would just throw out, compost the ones that I don't need, but that's just not me. So, what do I want to do? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to plant 2 of them in a big pot. That's probably a bad idea. I could Google it and see how much room they need in a pot, and then maybe I'll just plant up the rest of the big ones in some nursery pots, and I'll just take care of them for a while. If they get nice and big and somebody wants them, I'll give them away, or I'll put them on the Facebook Marketplace. Somebody can come and pick them up. So, what did I say? I had about 7 of these, so I'm going to get started on these next. So I did a quick Google search on growing ground cherries in containers, and it said, you know, make sure that the pot is at least 8 inches deep. Well, this pot is well over that, and so I think I'm just going to go ahead and plant 2 plants in here. I think it'll do just fine, but it's really an experimental year for all these tomatoes for me anyways, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. People tend to think that gardening is a old people hobby, but This is the worst part, hauling the dirt. I'm really wimpy, I'm out of shape, but I can't imagine being an old person. Hauling all of this dirt is heavy. Alright, so just like a tomato, ground cherries will grow roots all up their stems, so I'm just going to take some of the leaves off here and bury them nice and deep. I just remembered, I know my mom will take one of these, so I'm going to put one in a nice big pot for her that she can just keep it in. That's why I'm the favorite. I don't know if I'm going to have cilantro in time to make my salsa this year, but I'm going to give it a shot. So I'll plant a lot in case I have to use young cilantro. I've always started cilantro from seeds inside, from seeds inside in the winter, but I'm doing it directly into a pot outside this time, so this is a little bit new for me, but I imagine it's, you know, the same concept. This pot I just pulled some old lettuce out of, and I just broke up the root ball. I'm going to reuse most of the soil that was in there. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but I would imagine that there's probably some nutrients in the roots in here, so I'm going to give that a shot. So I'm just going to put a layer of this potting mix on top. Firm it down a little bit here too. And then I'm going to put a layer of this seed starting mix on top. That will make sure I've got a nice light growing medium for the seeds to start and the little sprouts to start poking through. So I'll put a layer of that on, and then I'll plant the seeds. Now these seeds, might look familiar. You can see them. They're actually coriander. So when cilantro goes to seed, it becomes coriander, the seeds. Now, these are actually seed pods. So this isn't the seed itself. The seeds are inside of there. So what I will do is I'll take these and I'll pinch them to open up the seed pod, and then the seeds can germinate more easily that way. I went down to the yard to tend to some tomatoes, and I did the thing where you get distracted, and I got distracted by the long grass. So I started mowing. I was just going to do around the edges where it's harder to get with a rider, and by the time I got all that done, there wasn't much left, so I just finished. But our lawn, I don't know if you can see it in here, but our backyard is so wet and swampy that now that I mowed it, and I went inside quickly and I came back out, and it smells like swamp out here. It's so gross. I don't know if, let's see if I can point it out. There's over there probably. I can't see in the camera. Just, you can see the dark lines in the grass. That's because it's wet. So maybe mowing it up will dry it out, but wet lawn also means bugs. There aren't too many out there, but I don't want to take my chances either, so that's why I wanted to mow before I started working out there. So where am I looking? Over there. That's next. I'm gonna start working on that. I guess it really doesn't seem like much. This is all still left to do. I've got sage, kohlrabi, kale, nasturtium, and pepperoncini peppers to plant yet. And I also have my beans and okra are still sitting there. But I got some extra water on this guy. I actually think this is gonna root. I'm excited to see how that pans out. All of this basil I got potted up. So 6 varieties, I think 6 varieties of basil. I planted my cilantro in here. Here are the other 3 basil plants that I got in today. I potted up a ground cherry for me, a ground cherry for my mom, and 3 more ground cherries for whoever might want them. Let's go down to the yard. There's my husband getting to work too. And then I took care of my experimental tomato beds. They're actually looking really good now. They were pretty darn sickly before. I guess they still kind of look messy because I didn't finish it really, but I pruned them all up. I added there's a lot of overgrown grass around them because I didn't have enough mulch, and really I wasn't gonna kill the grass around them because this is supposed to be a temporary bed, but it's just too hard to get around them with a mower. So I put down some paper shopping bags and covered them with grass clippings and mulch. So that should kill the grass underneath it, hopefully. We'll see. But I didn't do a great job. But what I'll do is I'll continue to just pile on grass clippings as I finish the mowing each time, and that should mulch it up pretty good. So these plants are doing really well. This one I pulled out. It looks like there's a little sucker growing in there, but I cut off all the dead leaves from these plants, and a lot of them are looking really good. This one's tiny, but it's looking a lot healthier. So I did that across the board here. Some of these already have some tomatoes on them. I don't know how good they're going to be because these plants are just really anemic. But I got it cleaned up and we might get some tomatoes off these. The other bed is over here. All cleaned up. See these tiny little guy. I don't know how well he's going to do, but we're going to give him a chance. I did have a couple of extra seedlings, so there were a couple plants that just looked really, really bad, so I yanked them out and replaced them with one of my seedlings, and I guess I can't even tell which ones they are now. These 2 looked really awful. They still look pretty sparse, but I took all the icky leaves off in there. We'll see if they come back. I gave my currant bushes a good feeding. Oh, and these tomatoes got a good feeding with fertilizer too. And my garden got a feeding. I was just going to feed the melon, or like the vining stuff, the cucumbers and the pumpkins, but I got out here and I had plenty of fertilizer, so I just sprayed down the whole garden with fertilizer. One other thing I didn't get done over here, the flowers, so the zinnias and the poppies. I didn't get those done, but I thought it might be a good idea for me to just get them fertilized anyway, so I gave them a good drink of water-soluble fertilizer, and they could just sit here overnight and maybe feel a little bit more strengthened for when I'm ready to transplant them. And then these are my only tomato seedlings left, so I don't know if I'm going to have a spot for them, but I'm going to I'll hang on to them until I know I'm not going to need them. Here's my boys. Okay, fine. That didn't really seem like a lot that I've accomplished today, but it really was. Those tomatoes, my experimental tomatoes, that was a lot of work. So that's it for today. See you next time.
Bye.
Hey,
Hi.
if you take me to Home Depot for fertilizer, I'll take you to Cuzzy's for a beer.
Why?
Look at this. We went to Home Depot and to dinner, and something came in here and dug up all my cilantro seeds. Look at that big giant hole. What the heck? And there's a hole right there. Somebody tried to eat my basil. And they came in here and dug in that too. Those little jerks. Let's see what else they got to. Yep. Look. Little punks. What the heck? We were only gone for an hour or two. That's it. I gotta go back to Home Depot and get something. I don't know what I'm getting, but something to make those jerks not do that.